Should I tell my boss about my wandering mind, my ADHD? It's an understandable but profoundly tricky question. Rarely comes alone. Few other questions tend to follow in its wake, like, what could I gain by saying something? Could it cost me my job? Would they even understand? And we can sit a long while in that not knowing. Welcome to the Rhythms of Focus podcast for wandering minds who are tired of feeling that they have to force themselves to make things happen. And maybe know that when things line up well, that tendency to wander actually becomes a powerful wave of focus. I'm Dr. Kourosh, Dini, fellow wandering mind. It wasn't that long ago that I struggled to make things happen, whether it was to remember when to pay a bill, do things over time, or look at a list without feeling repulsed. Fast forward through years of study and practice, I can now not only deal with the world, I can be creative, playful, and engage in the ways that make sense to me. I can be a doctor, musician, father, still play games in the evenings. I've created this podcast to share these ideas so you can do the same, hopefully with a lot less of the troubles I needed to go through to get here. Whether you have ADHD, deal with anxiety, or just suffer from a powerfully creative spirit, I invite you to join me in this weekly podcast to start finding your own way to a calmer, more intuitive space. Please note, I'm not functioning as your doctor, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, therapist, or otherwise. This is here for education, if not entertainment, and I do hope you enjoy it. That question, should I tell my boss about my ADHD, about my wandering mind? Before anything else, it helps to say clearly that worry, what it could do, what harm it could create, it's not imaginary. Telling someone can carry real weight. How a manager hears it, the protections it may or may not apply, whether it suddenly changes how our work gets read. Some bosses can meet it with grace, others not. You might even get fired for it, but maybe they would just point at something else as the culprit. Even so, sometimes being fired, whether out of fear, wish, or both, can be useful. So even if that were to happen, is that the right thing? It's not clear. Weighing whether to raise it is not simple. It's not weakness. It's care. Nothing here, of course, is meant to talk us past some genuine risk. I want to be clear about it. It's meant to be an idea that opens the question wider once the risks have been honestly faced. These questions have a history, something behind them. Wandering mind, ADHD or otherwise, is not just a person living in the moment. There's this history that follows us into the now. In the days of school, there's a depth of creativity and intelligence that needs to connect with reality. And then it can be met with so many different attitudes. As an example, when you raise your hand in class and this young kid wondering, why do I need to know this? One teacher may take the time to truly think about the power of the knowledge they are trying to impart, the sense of changing the world that could be beneficial to you, and then maybe find ways to connect with that driven spirit of care and play behind the question. But many others, exhausted by their own gauntlet of impossible rules, conflicting requirements, and the like, find that question to just be frustrating. And with enough accusations, enough feelings of frustration from up above in the class, we might lose sight of the positive behind that question. We might ask for accommodations. Hey, give me more time. Give me a fidget. Give me a break. Any and all of them could be helpful, but the person asked to do more for us might end up feeling resentful, consciously or otherwise. Each of us carrying more than the other can easily see. We can try to argue that such resentment is or is not warranted, but arguing the resentment away hardly works. Our arguments for accommodations are often these attempts to do what others do. Get the homework in on time, avoid disrupting others, pass the tests. Such approaches play out in the days well beyond school. In other words, behind the question of whether to tell a boss about ADHD is something along the lines of, what if I forget something? What if I miss a deadline? Could it get me off the hook? Or, give me lots of reminders, I can't handle them myself. And running underneath is all, how can I not be a troublemaker? What's missing is the wonderful power and beauty of a wandering mind. The deep focus, creativity, discovery, play, invention, and more. Why leave these behind in this discussion? When our strengths are unseen in the glimmer of another's eye, there's no mirror to see them in ourselves. Growing up now in a world of work, we often forget that these powers are there, laying dormant. Instead, we continue to ask for mercy and forgiveness in the form of accommodations rather than the conditions that allow us to shine. The trouble is often not that we cannot. It's that we do not have the practice of knowing and nurturing our abilities, communicating, crafting the stories, conveying the sense of what we have to offer, all take practice. In putting my own thoughts together for my dear audience of fellow wandering minds, I've had to practice describing how whatever I have to say might be of benefit. Without doing so, I'm just another talking head easily ignored. But when I can, for example, in the opening 90 seconds of my podcast, something I've worked hard to put together and then practiced, I hope to convey, hey, maybe I can help. Certainly I'm simplifying a deeply complex issue. This is not an overnight endeavor. It takes practice, visits over time. Sometimes it helps to recruit caring others to the cause. Among others, I give great thanks to my dear friends. One person who you've heard on an episode we did together, Rachel, who helped me recognize my voice, present my story, and describe the strengths I'm trying to portray. Another, Billy, who in another episode we did together, helped me think through also, how do I craft my voice? How do I present something? How do I present that I have something to offer, hopefully, to an audience? With practice, we learn for ourselves where we can and cannot trust ourselves to follow through on something. We find how to structure our work, our ideas, so we can be alerted when we need to be, clear of distractions, respectful of our own working memory as unique as it is. We learn not only what we need to get by, but more importantly, what we can use to excel. When we know how we can excel, what it takes to support our ability to do well, it's no longer about, do I tell my boss whatever? It's about discussing specifics that help nurture an environment that works for you, that helps you build the relationships between yourself and the work, that helps you engage yourself as a best self. So for a moment, consider what helps bring about those spirits of play and care for yourself. Maybe at home. What are those conditions? What comes from those conditions, those ways of working? And then rather than focus on conditions first, what if you considered what you could do and create if those conditions were there? Today's piece of music is called Wait in Arms. Enjoy. Small note before we close, I've started a new video series on YouTube called Finding Flow with ADHD. It walks through the waves approach of the waves of focus, the wandering mind, the anchor, the visit, and more. It's all brought to life on screen. And if that sounds useful to you, check out the link in the show notes.